Hello, Abdel Misa here. If you recall, I had done a video on inflation. Lately, it has become more of a concern, so let's get to it. So first of all, inflation is everywhere. You see it. Anywhere you go, you see inflation, okay? Gas prices. Let me give you an example. My favorite sushi went from $7.99, okay, so to $8.99. That's a dollar increase. You might say, well, a dollar is not a big deal. It's 12% increase, okay? And if it stays at this level, let's say for a year, it's 12% year over year. If they increase it more, that more than 12%. So it's really a serious problem. The Fed and Jerome Powell have made the argument that the inflation is transient, and I kind of agree with it because look, there are drivers that over the long term will, put pressure on the inflation to be down, such as automation. Okay. Now that's not really the question. I think the question is when we say inflation is transient, how long will it take, right, to be transient? That's number one. And then number two, it's look, if the Fed has to act before we have full employment, and then look, like if they have to raise interest rate, and then while we don't have full employment, that's really going to be tricky. So what's really going on with inflation? There are two major drivers. One is tight labor, and two is the supply chain. So with labor, there is something that's really abnormal that's going on, right? On one hand, we have tight labor. Businesses are not able to find enough labor. In fact, one of our favorite restaurants here just is closing because they're not able to find people, and that's really a shame. Okay, and this is really abnormal because on the other hand you have a high unemployment. Okay, so on one hand businesses are looking for people, on the other hand there are a lot of people that are unemployed, and then you wonder why. The answer is not simple, but I will guess there are a few drivers. One, of course, is COVID, and the Delta variant has not been helpful. Two is like, look, the government has been sending checks to people, not creating incentive for people to work. And then, look, there might be some behavioral changes with the COVID pandemic, okay, that are impacting the labor force. So on the other hand, you have supply chain issues. So first of all, commodities, okay, commodities are flying, whether it's oil prices, whether it's cost of materials, okay, and we are dealing with the situation with commodity prices are going up, but also the dollar is going up. So for international countries, that's even more of a problem. And then so you see a lot of supply chain issues. You see like factory closures, you see like a lot of backlog in ports, containers, like the cost of shipping has increased tremendously. And really, like what's going on, like we had the reopening of the US a few months ago, right? And then now we're starting to see reopening of international countries, let's say Europe, Asia, so there is more reopening, and then because of that there is demand creation, okay, and then there is like pent-up demand that we saw in the US. So it's a big mess, to be honest, and that's why we have, in my opinion, a lot of supply chain issues right now. So by now we should have had in the US an improvement in the supply chain, yet actually like things are getting worse. And so this is definitely something to watch because on one hand, think about it, like labor is tight, and then on the other hand, we have cost of commodities is up, and then supply chain is not acting the right way, okay? And so this is leading to inflation. And the question, as I said, is like, how long is it going to take? Okay, so while in my personal opinion I was thinking maybe by the first half of next year things are going to ease, I'm starting to think that look, like this might take longer. And if that's the case, here is the problem that the Fed might face, because look, like they most likely they're going to announce a taper in November, and then they have already indicated that the taper will end somewhere in the first half, call it like the end of the first half of next year. But what if inflation either like stays at this level or potentially even increases? So then the Fed most likely will have to face a very, very tough choice. Do they increase rates quickly to fight inflation, even though, okay, there is a lot of high unemployment, or do they focus more on employment and let inflation run? And so that will be a very difficult decision if that were the case. So hope this was helpful. Ask me any questions if you have any, and I'll see you next time.